Welcome to Gameday, the podcast of NJF, a new year, new project. And with this podcast, we're gonna take you behind the scenes to the sport industry, having interesting conversations with key executive. And today, I have the great pleasure for the first episode to have my friend Alessie, co-founder and director of World Football Summit. Welcome, Jan, and thank you for being here.
Kike, no, it's a pleasure, and it's a real honor to be in your podcast and to be the first of your invites. No,
yeah,
very happy to be here.
The idea is to have a regular catch up with different sport executive, and it's going to be interesting conversations to give the audience some insights on what's going on in the world of sports. And in the world of sports, no doubt that the World Football Summit has become the must in the agenda of any sport executive in the football industry, especially since its first edition in 2016. So, Jan, introduce yourself and give us a little bit an overview of what is World Football Summit.
Well, World Football Summit has evolved from an annual event that took place in Madrid, whose first edition took place in 2016, to now a global platform that since 2016 has organized 19 events in three different continents and has created a community of over 100,000 people across the globe that either work in football and sports or have a particular interest in this industry. So, in a nutshell, I think that's what World Football Summit is.
Yeah, it's pretty. I have the luck to see the evolution of World Football Summit since the beginning, and it's impressive to see how the event has evolved. But where everything started, where the idea came from?
Well, actually, World Football Summit is not a company; it's actually a brand. It belongs to a company called Nexus Fostering Partnership, which I started in 2006. It's a company that still does a lot of work apart from World Football Summit, but it promoted commercial relations between Spain and different countries. So we also became event organizers whenever we worked with Colombia, with countries like Colombia, Mexico, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cabo Verde. Whenever delegations came to Spain from those countries, we organized them business seminars, business conferences. So we became event organizers, specializing in this B2B market. The problem that Nexus had was that many of these countries or these clients that we worked for weren't recurring businesses. So maybe we did an event with Colombia one year, and would never do it ever again. So actually in 2010, I participated and I promoted an event which is now called South Summit, which now in Spain has become the biggest startup and entrepreneurial event that there is. Yeah. It was basically a copy of what already existed at the time in Dublin, which is Web Summit, and basically a meeting point and an annual meeting point for everybody that worked in the startup industry. So I developed and initiated that project in 2010. I participated in its first edition, and then I moved on. But that was a little bit the seed of what is World Football Summit. So we found it in South Summit in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we were looking for other industries that didn't have that annual meeting point. In 2014, we did an event with Indonesia. And we had La Liga, which at the time was called La Liga de Fútbol Profesional.
LFP.
LFP.
Remember those times.
Yeah. Well, they sponsored an event on Indonesia. So we were we didn't really understand why La Liga was sponsoring that. And then we started to do some research. And we saw that the pillar or one of the main objectives of the Spanish league was to internationalize itself. So we started, studying what La Liga, what their objectives were. We also saw that La Liga was supporting other international events, like SoccerX, and we saw that in Spain, that meeting point for an industry that was really growing did not exist. So we well, we started this project. No, we had this great name. No, World Football Summit. No, and we decided to develop it because we saw that there was a real opportunity in the market. No, to bring all those stakeholders together. Mainly at the beginning Spanish, but always our intention, as you can see from the name, was it to be a very international summit, and we thought we had the right ingredients for it. No, Spain has an enormous and fantastic footballing heritage, and then Spain is also a fantastic country to do any sorts of events. No, so you put those two together, and we thought that the success would be guaranteed. No, obviously. It took quite some time, no, and it wasn't easy to pull it through, no, but here we are, no, and we're quite happy with our progress up till now.
No, the progress has been, as I said, impressive. I've seen the evolution, and then really from the first event to the last one, and how everything has evolved, and how easy it is now for the speakers and the participants to get into the event, and all these details that you have been
well, you've seen it all, no? You've
polishing through the time. And the opportunity was incredible because, as you said, Spain it's a football superpower, worldwide football superpower, but we didn't have any industry related event, and this football has evolved from just entertainment and sports to become a real industry, I think. Yeah. And you mentioned that you had all the ingredients for success, and success. It's clearly, we can see in the results today that you've been pretty successful, but I'm sure there's been very tough times. What has been the most difficult moment in the evolution of World Football Summit?
Well, I think there have been several difficult moments. There will still be many difficult moments, like with any entrepreneurial project. I think mainly the beginning of the project was very difficult. I mean, we were a small company. We had no contacts in the sports industry. And this industry is not a big industry; it's rather closed. Yeah. So we were complete outsiders, no, with this great idea. So very few people believed in us, no, and believed that we would actually pull it through. So that beginning of the project was extremely challenging. 2 months before the event, we weren't sure whether we were going to do it or not. At the end, we just took a decision, no, to do it, whatever it costed us. And that first edition was successful, no? And actually, we even managed to break even in terms of costs with that first edition. And then, for further events, we managed to build on the success of that first edition. And with events, it always has a bit of a snowball effect, no? The first one is always the most difficult one, and then second, third editions, get easier. You get to have a reputation in the industry. You have repeat clients, repeat speakers, no, and you build on that success, no. So
yeah. And how was the first call to the first speaker to say, okay, we're gonna put together this program. These are the people that ideally we want them to participate as speakers. Yeah. We're gonna build the program. How is that first?
Well, we had no idea, and that is, yeah, you go meeting different people, and each person helps and puts you in contact with someone else, that helps you even more. But I actually remember that meeting very well. I went with my colleague then at Nexus, Marcos Pellegrin, who now works at La Liga, and he was actually the one who initiated the idea of a football industry project. But we met with a very good friend of mine who works at Telefonica now, and we had already designed, the ideal program, no, and we had several speakers there put together, and this friend of mine immediately saw that it wasn't going to be possible. No, some of the people we were trying to put together didn't have a good relationship, so I remember that he put me in contact with Javier Sobrino, who now is a very, very good friend, and he was one of the persons, no, who then put us in contact with Marca España. Marca España was this organization which now doesn't exist anymore, and the president of Marca España was Espinosa Los Monteros, and it was a very important Spanish institution which gave us a first institutional backing, for World Football Summit. was extremely important, and he immediately said and saw the potential of our project, because he was saying, I go to many trips with the King of Spain all over the world, no? And the first thing that breaks the ice in a conversation is football, is sports. So he was saying, the importance that sports, that football has in what is now called sports diplomacy, no? For Spain, it's extremely interesting. So he thought that to have an important global event in Spain was extremely important, no? So that was one of the first backings that we received, no? Which was extremely important. But then we've had so many others, no? So many people that we've met along the way, and that's one of the most beautiful things of this project. And it's just like, I met you through World Football Summit, and now we're good friends, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's happened with so many other people, no? That have been key to the success of World Football Summit and to our growth.
Yeah, I think, that snowball of meeting one person, that person linking you to the other one, that person linking you to another one. It's one of the keys and one of the things where you have been more successful in actually building the network. And you mentioned it at the beginning that you went from an annual event to now a multi-event calendar and a platform for networking. So why do you think that the football industry need an event like World Football Summit?
Well, because first of all, in Spain, for example, it didn't exist, but I think events in general are very important for any industry. So we haven't invented anything that didn't exist before. But in football, in sports, maybe it didn't exist before. And maybe it didn't exist before because an industry did not exist before. And it's still a rather small industry, no? Other industries obviously have huge annual events, and the sports industry didn't. But now that it's getting bigger, it's getting professionalized. The opportunity, to meet in 2 days people that otherwise would take you 24, 28 months is extremely important, no? And it's extremely important not only to make new business relationship, but also to strengthen existing ones, no? And I think in-person events are very important for that reason. And I think COVID, has accentuated that even more when we were locked in our homes, no, and people weren't able to network and to contact. I think business suffered, no. And once doors were opened again, no, people flocked again, no, and networking has become more important than ever.
And how did you manage the COVID times? I remember when we were locked down, and we were actually in discussions for the partnership of World Football Summit that in September. We were locked down in March, so we were starting the discussion around the event on that year. At that time, I was at Meta, and we were one of the sponsors and supporters of the event.
Well, and you were actually, COVID has been another one of our biggest challenges. And when COVID happened, I was in Africa, in South Africa. We were going to do the first edition of World Football Summit Africa. You were going to travel and we canceled that event 5 days before the event. It was meant to take place on the 17th and 19th of March. On the 11th of March, the OMS declared a global pandemic. On the 12th, we decided to cancel the event. And on the 13th, we were all back. The whole team, we were 11 people from the team, flew back to Madrid, And that year was going to be a very big year for World Football Summit. We had, apart from the African event, we were going to do our second edition in Asia. We had our fifth edition in Madrid. And we were actually negotiating to do an event at the end of the year in South America as well. So all our plans went up in the air. And we were 22 people in the company then. And 1 year later, we were 6. So we struggled a lot, although I think we did things very well. We did 2 digital events. We did several digital also workshops, seminars that worked very well and actually helped build our brand and that community, which is now, I think, the strongest asset that World Football Summit has. All of those people that follow us, through our newsletter, through our social media platforms, no, and who come to our events wherever we do them, no. So actually, that pandemic helped us grow that, no, and helped also change our strategy in that sense, no, from becoming an event organizer, no, to a platform that serves and gives information, no, and brings people together, not only during the events, but 365 days a year.
Yeah, that community building piece
Yeah.
it's the key
Exactly.
at the moment. And after COVID, everything catch up really fast because we just came back from the World Football Summit in Saudi, the World Football Summit Asia. In July or June, sorry, we have the World Football Summit Americas in Mexico.
Yeah.
What is World Football Summit today in terms of events? What are your key events that you have throughout the year?
Yeah, our strategy, our vision really is hopefully to, and we're getting very close to it, is to have one global regional event in a different continent each quarter. So next year on our second quarter will be our first edition in the Americas. We're very excited about that. It's going to take place in Cancun, Mexico.
Nice destination.
Yeah, it's a nice destination. And it comes also at the right time because 3 years later, the World Cup will take place in the North American continent, no, in Mexico, the US, and Canada. The inauguration will probably be in Mexico, no? So it's a great opportunity also for us to build a community also in that region, no? Then on the third quarter, we're going to have our 8th edition of what is now World Football Summit Europe, which again will take place in Sevilla. Then we hope to do our 3rd Asian edition, the second one in Saudi Arabia, which will be again at the end of the year. And we hope actually to relaunch in the first quarter of 2025 our African edition, which took place in 2022 in South Africa, and we hope to bring it back to Africa in 2025. No? So that is one of our main visions, no, because also all of these events, they don't step on each other, no, but rather they allow us, to attract new attendees, new speakers, new partners to all of our events. And then apart from these global World Football Summit events, we also have some other smaller events, verticals, such as the Football Innovation Forum. Thanks to that, we normally link that event to the Champions League final. It has a different format, so it's only a half-day event. It's an invite-only event for 200 selected attendees, and it takes place the day before the Champions League final. Last year, it took place in Istanbul. The first edition we had done in 2019 in Madrid, and this year we'll be doing it for the first time in London at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So yeah, we're very excited with that now. And then, apart from the events, we're content creators, no? Everything that happens at the events, all of the panels that take place, no? We showcase them on our YouTube channel, and then we have also our podcast. We have this weekly newsletter, no, where we share all the information and all the news that is happening in the industry. So yeah, the plans are very, very big, and yeah, we certainly don't get bored with everything that we're envisioning.
Yeah, I think that the first year after the event you were like, okay, now I can relax. Now it's like after the event you need to start preparing the next quarter, the next event and the next quarter.
Yeah.
And then you have the weekly content that you're creating and the podcast. Absolutely. And everything. So
yeah. No, but it's an asset that we have that we still has a lot of potential, no? Yeah. So I really think that the growth opportunity is still huge for us, and we just have to consolidate all of these events, and once we do that, maybe in a few years we'll be able to relax a little bit more because
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Don't get so much hope in relaxing. So to summarize your vision, so you have this platform vision where you want key executive and entrepreneurs and companies of the football industry to meet on your regular events. Are you thinking about something else that it's year-long, or ways using technology to try to connect people in a different way? Or
Well, I think obviously the technology is helping event organizers like ours, to build that community, and we have a fantastic opportunity to build the strongest football industry community in the world. And for example, at every event that we organize, we have a very powerful app, that allows all the attendees to network amongst each other, to chat, but also to close meetings. And in that app also we distribute all of our content. We have our live stream. So one of the plans that we have is that app becomes something that works all year round. And that everybody who, whether you come to an event or you don't, you can have access to that app. So that is like a small private LinkedIn platform, but obviously focused only in people that work in football, sports, or have a particular interest in that. So that is one of our main challenges, and it's something that we're trying to build.
Excellent. And going back a little bit to the event organizing side of the business, I can imagine that working across different continents with different cultures has put you in very funny situations, to say, in a way. Can you share like a funny story or a moment that you couldn't believe that, or you thought that the event was not going to be possible, but at the end you managed to resolve it? Because I'm sure you had a lot of last minute inconvenience.
Yeah, we have. In fact, our last project in Saudi Arabia has been a very big challenge. I think when you do any first edition in any country, it's always a huge challenge, because you have to deal with a different culture. And once you arrive in a different country, you expect, or some people expect, that World Football Summit is already, or a name that everybody knows, but it's not. So you have to kind of build from scratch. And in Saudi Arabia, we needed a local partner to organize the event, which we had. But then, we had some inconveniences, and when I arrived in Saudi Arabia a month and a half before the event, we actually parted ways with that local partner. So we had to find a new local partner in Saudi Arabia with which we had to have a license to actually organize an event. And that license arrived 5 days before the event, with a weekend in between. So you can imagine the stress that was. I was convinced it was going to happen, but there was a small possibility that maybe we weren't giving that license. And we had hundreds, if not thousands, of people that were going to travel to Saudi Arabia for that event. And without that license, the venue where we were going to organize the event, we're not going to open the doors. So yeah, that is a small anecdote of how stressful organizing an event can be. And those are things that people normally don't see from the outside. But we have those challenges all of the time. Also during the events, it's always very difficult. I always say that I'm, extinguishing little fires everywhere, and especially the beginnings of the events are always challenging, and you can't always make everybody happy. So
it's impossible.
It's impossible.
And you can't control everything. So
but I always say, that I'm always happy at the end of the event when there are more positives than negatives, because there are always negatives and there are always things that you can improve. And that's also the beauty of the events, because the first edition you do so many mistakes that the next edition you correct, you do new ones, but not the same ones. So it really always allows you to grow in each edition, and to improve your product year after year, and event after event.
And I think it's like in a lot of things in life, it's like you need to do the mistakes to understand what's wrong. And the only way of learning is trying.
And it's never going to be perfect, and you're always going to make mistakes. But if there are more positives than negatives, well, then at the end of the day, normally I end up, with a big smile, and luckily we've been lucky enough, to for all our events to have been more successful, no, and that is, I think, the secret of our growth, no, that we've been improving each year, no, and our clients, our partners, our speakers have seen it for themselves.
And talking about the speakers, because if you look at the website of World Football Summit and you see the quality of the speakers that you had, even since the first edition I participated, I remember Agnelli was the first speaker opening. You have Javier Tebas, Miguel Angel Gil, Professor Yunus in the last edition as well, Fatma Zamora. You had so many great speakers. I'm not gonna ask you to choose the one that impressed you the most or your top 5 or something, but from all the people that you've met, who are people that have really impressed you on the way they see life, they see the industry, and have really, you have that feeling of, wow, this is an extraordinary professional and human being.
Yeah. Well, actually, you mentioned it, and we've had him in our past 2 events. No, Professor Yunus was actually right now is being politically persecuted by the government in Bangladesh, and he's now being helped by people such as President Obama, Richard Branson as well, who are helping him. And what I like also about Professor Yunus is that it's the typical speaker which you wouldn't expect in a football industry event like ours, no? But he knows of the power of football for good, no? And in fact, he has his own organization called the Yunus Sports Hub, and that's what he came to World Football Summit to talk about, no? But I always say that I think sports, and especially football, no, is the greatest generator of content in the world, and that's why football has an extremely powerful voice. And I think sports and football has a great opportunity for that voice to be, to promote, social aspects, no, and to be a leader in things like equality, sustainability, racism, and that is something that, for example, Professor Yunus is trying to do through sports, no. So he, I think, is a perfect example. And then, he's a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and he's just such a modest and kind person, has done so much for people that for me, it's been an absolute honor to have him in our last 2 events, and to establish that strong partnership with his organization.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have the luck to see him in the event in Saudi, but I had the opportunity to spend some time with him in Seville and had a brief conversation, and you really feel small next to him, because when he starts talking about everything he has achieved and the simplicity and the way he talks about it, it's just incredible. For me, it was really eye-opening.
Excellent. Yeah, and actually for me, I mean, I've known Professor Yunus also for many, many years, and actually a friend of mine, she had a foundation here in Spain whose president was the Queen of Spain, and the Queen of Spain used to travel with Yunus all over Latin America, especially, promoting microcredits, which is what Professor Yunus has invented, no, and that has helped so many poor people around the world, no, and especially women, no, because they are the main people that benefit from these microcredits, because women in those countries are actually the ones that give back those micro loans that are done by Professor Yunus's bank.
It's and now that you're mentioning women, especially, it's a topic that has become more and more important over the years. If we see the success of the Women's World Cup in terms of audience, of attendance, of revenue generative, sponsor, ticketing, everything, I think has exceeded anyone's expectation. How important is women participation for World Football Summit? Because I have to say that have seen a very positive evolution from the first event where, football industry and sport industry is now it's a male dominant industry. But I know that you're making some efforts on trying to make it more inclusive and opening up for women. I have seen that evolution. Can you take us through, the step that you have done to increase the women's participation?
Absolutely. Well, to begin with, my partner, Mariano Tamendi, she's a woman, and with whom I share this project of World Football Summit. And obviously, she as a woman is in a leading role now in the football industry, and obviously she is also very much promoting equality in this industry, and we've always believed that it should be the case, because I think it's a huge opportunity for the football industry. Basically, before or a few years ago, they were ignoring 50% of the world's population, and now that they're not, I think that the opportunity for the industry is huge, but not only in women's football, but I think in women in leadership positions within the industry, and a lot has to be done. And we've always done a lot of projects. Actually, in 2017, we did an event fully focused on women's football, which was called Women's Football Summit. Actually, then we were probably too early. And it was a successful event in terms of attendance, in terms of speakers, but financially it was a disaster, and we didn't get any single sponsor. So since then, actually, we've integrated that event within all our global events, to make sure that women's football and women in leadership positions is a core pillar of our program and everything that we do. We also belong to an organization called Women in Football, and we've done several projects with them. In 2023, we did a project where we committed that at least 30% of the speakers at World Football Summit would be female, and actually that year 34% of them were, and it wasn't too difficult, because there are fantastic people and fantastic women that are working in sports. But we obviously made a specific interest to invite them and make sure that they would attend. And this year we've also started another project called Female Leaders, where apart from making sure that we have a strong representation of female speakers within our program, we also managed to have a stronger attendance of women who have an interest in the industry and who want to work in the industry. So that is something actually that we copied from other events like Web Summit, who have a very strong program. And for example, I think Web Summit last year in Lisbon, 50% of the attendees, or more than 50% of the attendees were women. We only achieved, I think it was 17% this year in Sevilla. But hopefully in a few years it will be 50%, and we won't have to do all of these projects to have that equality, But until that happens, we're really going to push for that, because I think it's for the benefit of the football industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think the key for you has been to integrate that. At the beginning, you conceptualize this Women Football Summit like as a separate event, and you realize that what it makes sense is to really naturalize and integrate it together. I think that's the key to normalize, and it's one of the challenges of the industry, really, because still diversity it's a problem. It's a very European male dominated industry, and if you look at the football field, it's not like that. The athletes are very, very diverse. So I think the industry had to make a real effort in trying to get the diversity you see on the field and the diversity you see on the fans to the leading roles. And talking about challenges, after all these editions, all the speakers that you have heard from, what do you think are the challenges that the football industry has today?
I think one of the main challenges, obviously, is I think the professionalization of the industry. No, I think as we discussed before, it's still an industry. It's still not mature, and the football industry it's still in its infancy. Many clubs,
which is funny because football has been around for
it
hundreds
has,
of
yeah.
years, and the
Exactly.
industry it's just
not. And as an industry, I think it's still small. Many clubs are still managed like family businesses, and it makes sense also because I think the revenues of clubs, they still, you can't compare them to those of big companies. No, I always say, people don't know that. No, they're always surprised. No, they think clubs are multi-million businesses. No, but they're not. No, I think Real Madrid's annual revenue is not more than 900 million euros.
Yeah, I think it didn't get to 1 billion. Yet.
No,
and if you think the amount of companies that make 1 billion,
exactly. I always say there's this. I think Real Madrid's revenue is the same revenue as 2 Apple stores in New York. No.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, exactly. Whereas the brand value of Real Madrid, no, if you compare it to a company like Apple, it's quite similar. So the real opportunity also, or the real challenge that football has, no, is to monetize all of those fans that they have all over the world. No, I was reading the other day that I think there are 3.5 billion football fans, no, around the world. So that really showcases, I think, the opportunity that football has. But the growth potential is big, but they still have to get there, no? And that's also maybe why an event like ours did not exist 10 years ago, no? Because that industry still did not exist, no? But there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, and it's funny because there are things in the industry that you see and different dynamics that really strike me, because you have very professional institutional investors that are looking into sport and are looking into football as an industry, as an investment opportunity. But sometimes the rigorous economic terms that they will look in an investment in a normal investment, they don't apply them 100% to football, because they have this passion thing that changes
there are
everything.
other parameters, no?
Yeah.
But which are important, and I think and makes, I think, an investment in sports, and especially football, unique. But I think, people who invested 10 years ago in football have made a very good business, no?
Yeah, for sure.
You just look at the numbers, of football clubs at the moment, no? And I think, and I truly believe that with that professionalization of the industry, the values of those clubs will continue to grow.
Yeah, especially because we've been through a time where the main, for a football club or for a league, the main revenue generators were media rights, sponsorship, and ticketing, and all merchandise, all these commercial business. Let's call it that way. Media rights are clearly have reached their roof. We're not seeing with the renewables of the media rights. We're not seeing the increases that we were seeing some years ago. Sponsorship, I think, is where there's a lot of room to grow, as media rights has reached its ceiling, I think, in sponsorship, with technology, with data, with building direct relationship with consumer, and using sports as a way to reach people. I think there's still a lot of potential, and around commercial opportunities. Yeah. It's where I see also one of the key areas of growth.
But I think it's normal also that media rights has reached that peak, because also the way that people, and especially young people, are consuming sports is different, so obviously, but there are more. I think technology is giving a lot more opportunities for properties to showcase and to create content for all of that audience, and I think actually, I mean, the young people that I know are extremely interested in sports and football, so there's a great opportunity to reach them, and football, I think, is second to none in that sense. No, I mean, I think it's many people say that, you know, the young generations, they don't like and they don't follow football anymore, and I couldn't disagree more. You can see, you know, the World Cup, no, in last year's World Cup in Qatar, it was a huge success, no, and then we also look at things from the perspective of ourselves, no, and the European market, but we never look also at other markets. I was also tell the example of, I don't know, a country like Morocco, no, which reached the semi-final of the World Cup. What percentage of the population in Morocco saw that semi-final against France? 99.9% probably.
Probably,
no?
Yeah.
And that is unique. I mean, no other sports and no other industry can ever, I think, achieve something like that. No, so that's a great opportunity.
Yeah,
no?
especially in a world where everything is consumed on demand.
Yeah.
If you think about it, any content that you can think of and on entertainment can be consumed on demand. Football needs to be consumed live.
Yeah.
Is it true that maybe younger audiences are not spending that much time in the live event, but at the same time they're consuming content 24/7?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you think about classic football fan 30 years ago, he could only see the content on TV and maybe had a conversation at the bar the next day.
Yeah.
But now it's about, you know, messaging apps and content created every day by the clubs and content created every day by the footballers and
and
all these touching points.
And certain matches, I think, are consumed live. No, like a World Cup, like a Champions League final. No, or like, you know, certain teams playing together at a global level, which makes it absolutely unique. No, and also I remember, you know, with the final of the World Cup, looking at the data of the different, you know, tech companies, no, from Meta, WhatsApp, Twitter, well, X now, no, the numbers of the interactions that were taking place during that final blew away any numbers that had ever taken place on those platforms any other day since they were born. No, so they broke all records. No,
and also if you think about other phenomena like you know, Messi going to Miami and suddenly you look at Inter Miami had like 500,000 followers and in one day they reached 12 million people. It's just it's incredible. Like the power that football has to move audiences and drive that interest.
Well, I was in Saudi Arabia. It's a perfect example. No, Al Nasser, when before Ronaldo started, I think in Instagram they had, I don't know, 250,000 followers, and now they have, I think, over 25 million.
Yeah, and not just that. Like,
it's
you know, we live in Madrid, a city arguably with one of the cities with most football tradition in the world, with clubs like Real Madrid, Atletico, and many others. And since Ronaldo moved to Al Nassr, I see every day someone with an Al Nassr shirt, which would be something unthinkable a few years ago. Like no one here in Spain, at least here in Spain, knew about Al Nassr or the Saudi Pro League.
And you'll see it in Spain, but you'll see it in India, in China, in, you know, in Africa, all over the world. No, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's really everywhere. And you know, thinking about Saudi and obviously you brought World Football Summit to Asia to Saudi. There's a lot of interest in growing sports. What's your vision of all the investment that Saudi is doing in sport and in football in particular?
Yeah, well, I'm a great admirer of what is being done in Saudi Arabia. I think it's a country that before was kind of closed to the world, and now they have a new vision. No? There's the famous Vision 2030, and now it's a country that has opened up to the world. And I think it's a bit different to other countries in the regions in that it is a very big country. It has a very large population of close to 40 million people. those 40 million people are extremely young. 70% of the population is under 29 years old, under 30. So it's a country which has embraced not only football but sports, but not only, I think, attracting the great names, but I think their strategy really is also for the local population to be a lot more active, and that's one of their strategies. And yeah, for us, for World Football Summit, it's a huge opportunity. We actually we just did our event in December in Jeddah. It coincided also with the FIFA Club World Cup. And surprisingly, it's the first event of its kind that took place in Saudi Arabia. And we're hoping to replicate it, each year. And I think we have the potential there for it to be the biggest event that we've ever done, no? Because the ambitions, no, of the country are so great. And now they're the only candidate for the World Cup in 2034.
Well, they're going to host it, so.
Well, officially not.
Well,
they're
looks like.
Yes, it looks like it because nobody else is a candidate, no? So the only one, but they're gonna have to make that application, but yeah, most certainly no. In 2034, there's gonna be a World Cup there. So it's a very long-term project. It's many people were comparing it to what China was doing, and I think it's completely different. Also because of the passion. Not only in the country, because in the whole region for football is absolutely huge. And the main country of the region, the real global powerhouse of the region is Saudi Arabia, and it's a country that now has woken up and is catching up with all those years where they were more closed.
Yeah, I remember two things that Carlo Nora, the CEO of the Saudi Pro League, said in the World Football Summit that really opened my eyes when it came to the Saudi project in football and the comparison to China, because the moderator, I think it was Luis Vicente was moderating that panel, probably, I don't remember, but the moderator asked him, okay, what's the difference between Saudi and China? And he said two things. The first one is that Saudi Arabia is a country with a big football tradition. Mm-hmm. They participated in the last, 8 World Cups from the last 10 editions. So, and it's true, like the Saudi national team has been very successful and always made it to the final round of the World Cup. Think that Italy didn't participate.
Don't remind me, Kike, please.
Didn't participate in the last 2 editions of the World Cup, but that's something that opened my eyes. Said that, okay, you have a lot of football tradition. You have 40 million people and a very young population. And the other thing that impressed me more was the focus they were putting in grassroots football. The amount of schools that they're building for football. It looks like the main goal. All the attention goes to the big names and to the millions that are spending in bringing those big players. But the real investment is happening in the country. Absolutely. And I think those are the two things that when Carlos said, it was like, open my eyes and say, yes, like they're right.
Yeah. Well, it's also a small anecdote, but for the project in Saudi, I went to Saudi Arabia 1.5 months before the event to properly prepare it. And for example, this thing of that the whole population, has to be more active, has to do more sports. Apart from the fact that you see gyms now in Saudi Arabia, in every corner, but something as simple as Uber Eats. You open Uber Eats and you don't see a McDonald's, a Burger King. You see like sections of keto diet, low calorie. It's like they're focused on being fit, or at least that is the strategy of the country. It's incredible, and I was shocked because normally when I want to order Uber Eats, it's because I want to have one of those,
burger.
Exactly. It's one of those cheap
food.
Meals, no? Yeah. And I went into Uber Eats and I couldn't find any of those cheap meals, no? And I was like, okay, this is really a symptom of something changing, no?
Something changing, yeah. And next year it's going to be, so I think, this year in 2024, You have a big agenda of events starting next in Mexico.
No, 30th.
Oh, sorry,
30th of
30th,
May,
the
London.
London Football Innovation Forum, continuing 1 month after.
The week later, 5th and 6th of June will be Cancun, Mexico.
Then September.
18th and 19th of September will be Sevilla, Spain. And still we have to decide on a date, but it will be end of the year, Saudi Arabia. And most probably will be in Riyadh, in the capital.
So 4 events for 2024 planned, potentially more events for 2025. And I think the goal to keep growing the platform. And keep growing that networking opportunity.
Yeah, and as I said, improve each of the events, no? So make sure that each edition of each event is better year after year, no? For us to have better speakers, a better program, that the quality of the attendees grows, and that our services also become better, and that networking, no, and that content that we produce at each of our events, increases in quality year after year.
Well, best of luck for the upcoming year, for 2024. Thank you for being here with us and share your story about World Football Summit. And I cannot wait to join the different events. Probably in the future we'll do one of these episodes from World Football Summit. Who knows?
Absolutely. No, we'd love to. No, and thank you, Kike, for inviting me. And it's an absolute honor to have been your first guest in this podcast.
Indeed. It's going to be a long journey. We're going to be creating content regularly. I think that's the biggest challenge, and you're suffering it. So thank you everyone for joining, and best of luck for everything, John.
Thank you, Kike.